Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Cowboys Beat Live. Hold up. Let me turn down that music. That music probably loud as hell. Probably couldn't even hear me. That's fine. You can hear me now. Welcome, guys. Pretty big game on Sunday night. Eagles versus Cowboys. We all hate the Eagles. We know that. Well, unless you're an Eagles fan. But I'm not. Definitely not. I'm a Cowboys fan. So here's the thing. Here is the deal with this show today, okay? So if you don't know already, I live in the Philadelphia area, so I know a lot of Eagles fans. I have friends that are Eagles fans. I have friends that are Cowboys fans as well. So I'm going to open up the floor to both fan bases. I'm going to have people call in through StreamYard, and we're going to get it popping like that. So if you see me looking at my screen or looking at my phone, it's probably just because I'm trying to set some things up, and, we're going to facilitate it like that. Let me turn down this music a little more. Yo, what up, Raymond? How you doing, bro? Turn it up just a tad bit. I got to figure out this music thing, man. I'm terrible with this. But, yeah, so let's get into this game, guys, because this is a very big game. So hear me out when I say this, because what I'm about to say might sound crazy when it comes to a game plan, right? So I think that if the Cowboys do these three things, all three things that are within their control, right? They can do all three of these things. It has nothing to do with the Eagles, right? If they, one, cut down on the bad penalties that they've committed in that last game, right? They committed a lot of boneheaded penalties in that game. As a matter of fact, the Cowboys in big spots in recent years have tend to commit a lot of penalties in those spots, right? And they're boneheaded penalties. They're offsides. They're false starts. They're, stupid penalties like that. Pre-snap penalties that you can fix. The Cowboys, I bring up this stat all the time. They're top 5 in the league in pre-snap penalties. And the teams that are involved in that top 5 list are not teams that you want to be involved in any type of list with. You just don't. So to me, the biggest thing going into this game is, can the Cowboys not shoot themselves in the foot in this spot? Because if they can do that, I really feel good about their chances, right? You go back to last game, Tyler Smith had a false start on the 6-yard line. When you were right there, you could have scored on that play, and Tyler Smith had that false start, brought you back 5 yards. There was the Rashaan Evans face mask. There was the kick out of bounds by Brandon Audrey. And mind you, both of those drives where the Eagles started on the 40-yard line, right? They scored on both of those drives. They got 7 points on both of those drives. Now, I'm not saying that if you didn't commit those penalties that they wouldn't have scored on those drives. They very well could have. But it is a lot harder to drive 75 yards than it is 60 yards. And we saw in that game that it was a game of inches. Am I right? We saw with the Schoonmaker play, game of inches. I got a little bit of a beef with that play, but that's a play that we're going to leave in the past because I've talked about it. What is it? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not. Again, if you see me looking down on my phone, it's because I'm trying to coordinate some things. Right? I don't have a producer. I'm my own producer. All right. So with that train of thought, yeah. So if you're able to start them at the 25 instead of the 40-yard line on both of those drives, maybe you would have been able to get a stop. Maybe they don't score 7 points on those drives. Maybe you get a field goal, right? And that might have been the difference in that game if they would have gotten a field goal in those two drives, or maybe a field goal and a touchdown in those particular drives. So not shooting yourself in the foot is going to be big in this game. Against good team, like the Eagles are a good team. I hate them. We all hate them, right? They're a really damn good football team. And when you play good football teams, you can't commit penalties like that. You can't commit boneheaded penalties like that, or you're not going to win this game. You're just not. It's pretty much impossible to win a big time game like this if you're going to make boneheaded mistakes. Let the other team make boneheaded mistakes going into this game, right? Number 2 for me is capitalize. Like when you have an opportunity, capitalize on it. Because there were a few opportunities that the Cowboys had in that game that they didn't take advantage of, right? There were 3 fumbles committed by the Eagles, and they didn't recover any of those fumbles. They had the Sam Williams strip sack. They fumbled the ball. I think DeAndre Swift might have fumbled the ball 2 times that game. If you're able to pick up one of those fumbles, I think you have a very good chance to win that game. Like I really do. I think you have a good chance to win that game if you retrieve those fumbles, because that would have been the difference to me, especially if you would have gotten that strip sack that Sam Williams had on what's his name? Jordan Mailata. He beat Jordan Mailata off the edge, had that strip sack on Jalen Hurts. If you recover that, I think they ended up scoring on that drive. So again, capitalize on your opportunities. This is something that is in your control, because, ultimately, in these games, when you get opportunities like that, you usually don't see that a second and a third time. And unfortunately for you, you saw that 3 times, but you weren't able to capitalize on that opportunity. So those are like 2 things to me that are in your control, can absolutely handle that. To me, I got you, Mikey. I'm going to get you in here pretty soon. To me, another thing is throw the football. Throw the football. Don't play around with this trying to establish the run early. The Eagles would love if you tried to establish a run game in this game. I'm telling you that right now. They would love it. They'd be like, sure, try and establish a run game. We don't want you throwing the ball on us anyway. And one thing with football is, right, you want to do what the opposing team doesn't want you to do, right? Like, that's big in football, because if I can't defend the pass worth a lick, I don't want you throwing the football, because I can't defend that to the level that I can defend the run if you're the Philadelphia Eagles. Their personnel is catered to stopping the run, especially on the interior with those big bodies in there like Jordan Davis and Fletcher Cox and Jalen Carter. Milton Williams is another guy, very nice player that they have. They would love for you to try and run A gap, B gap all game and try and establish a run. Don't even bother with it, right? Come right out of the gates and throw the football. So 3 things that we talked about, right? Capitalizing on your opportunities, no dumb mistakes, no dumb penalties, like a false start, offsides, intent or what is it? Unnecessary. I'm killing myself tonight. Unnecessary roughness, like Rashaan Evans had on that kickoff. No kicking the ball out of bounds, right? You can control those things. So take advantage of that. And then, yeah, if you do those 3 things that are within your control, I feel really good about your chances in this game. I really do. 2 things that I want to talk about. So going into this game offensively, the Eagles are going to pay a ton of attention to CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb is outside of Dak Prescott, and honestly, maybe even Tyron Smith. We're going to have that discussion on another day. Tyron Smith's playing at an incredibly high level. CeeDee Lamb might be the best player. He is the best player on this offense. Second best, at worst, third best, right? So the Eagles know that going into this game. They're going to pay a ton of attention to CeeDee Lamb going into this game. So what I'm thinking is Cooks and Ferguson can ball. Those dudes are nice, man. How about we go out and we try and establish them early? What's up, Justin? I just wanted to make sure nobody was complaining about the music. I wanted to let me know in the chat if the music's too loud, because I want everybody's listening experience to be as good as possible. And I just lost my train. Oh yeah, Cooks and Ferguson. I would get them involved early, because at the end of the day, it's not like they necessarily have guys that can deal with those guys, right? Like, they don't have the linebackers and safeties to deal with Jake Ferguson. They don't have the corners to deal with Brandon Cooks, but they're not going to double those guys. They're going to double CeeDee Lamb. They're going to bracket cover CeeDee Lamb. They're going to pay as much attention to CeeDee Lamb as they possibly can. And Ferguson and Cooks are capable guys. They're really good players. And you ride that until, okay, now they have to respect the other pieces on your team. Now you go after CeeDee Lamb. Now you start establishing CeeDee Lamb. And now CeeDee Lamb starts killing them in the pass game. And now they have no answer for CeeDee Lamb. So that's the way I would do it. It might sound crazy to say that, and maybe the Cowboys have absolutely no respect for this Eagles secondary, and they just go out there and they say, screw it, man. We're just going to throw the football. We're going to throw the football with no strategy to it whatsoever, because that's how little respect we have with the secondary. But I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to have a strategy to attack the secondary. But I would love to see them establish Cooks and Ferguson very early. On the defensive side of the ball, the Eagles love the big play. So again, this might sound crazy, And what I'm about to say is not necessarily an indictment on the Eagles personnel, because I think they have really good personnel when it comes to what I'm about to talk about. I would keep everything in front of me because Jalen Hurts is looking for that big play. I would see if they're willing to commit to the run, because I don't think that offensive coordinator in Philadelphia, Brian Johnson, is going to stay committed to the run. There were two games in particular that Philly had where they were committed to the run. That's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, and that's the Minnesota Vikings game. Those are the two games where they stayed committed to the run because they were having success against the run. But ultimately, this is a team that they'll deviate from the run. It's not necessarily something that they love to do. They want to throw the football a lot. So, that's something that I would take into consideration. I'm not saying that they should absolutely 100% do that, but it's a very impatient play caller over there in Philadelphia. So before I get into, oh, cool, Mikey's not in here anymore. I was gonna put him on, but yeah, we'll get into this. So yeah, my two things on offense: target Cooks and Ferguson early. If on the defensive side of the ball, keep everything in front of you. See if they can commit to the run, and if they do commit to the run and they're starting to gash you, then you make your adjustment, right? But at the end of the day, and not only that, another thing that I want to talk about is what the 49ers did last week to Jalen Hurts. They rushed 4, they dropped 7. They made Jalen Hurts decipher things in coverage, and they had a lot of success doing so. So I want to go over this clip from Greg Cosell. He's big into, film watching and stuff like that, just like myself, but I'm not nearly the level of Greg Cosell. So I want to talk about this before I get into my next point.
Hurts is leaving a lot of throws on the field. There's some really good offensive designs. Receivers are open, throws are there. He's not turning it loose. Only he could tell you why, but he's either not seeing it, he's not processing it, he's not registering it. I mean, it started on the first play of the game this past week. He had Stoll wide open with a really well-designed play, wide open on a sail route, looked right at him and didn't turn it loose. And I could give you, we're not going to go through them all because people would need to see it, but I could give you 4 or 5 examples from this week where the design of the concept was beautiful, receivers were open, and he didn't throw it. And this has been building up over time. And then the flip side of that is he's leaving the pocket prematurely as well. He's perceiving pressure that's not there by NFL standards. So
all right, so that was from the Ross Tucker show. So I just wanted to give some credit to Ross Tucker on that one. I think that a lot of his struggles this year are coming from that new offensive coordinator. Jalen Hurts is a really good quarterback, right? I know he plays for the Eagles. All the Cowboys fans hate him. Not all of them, but Cowboys fans hate him. It is what it is. He's a really good quarterback. He's struggling. He's going through his growing pains right now. He had that really good season last year. It was his second year as a starter. Now he's doing that natural thing where, defenses have adjusted to him. And he's kind of figuring it out. But while he's figuring out, you have to take advantage of that. So, that was just a very interesting nugget there from Greg Cosell. But I'm going to bring in my good friend, Brendan. He is an Eagles fan. I'm going to have a few Eagles fans in here today. And you want to know what's funny? The Eagles fans that I'm bringing in, you guys are actually probably going to like a majority of them because they are level-headed. So without further ado, Brendan, how are you doing, my friend?
What's up, Chris?
Hey, nice to see you. Long time no see. It's not like I saw you this morning or anything.
Yeah, how did you have any trouble leaving a lot today with your windshield wipers or your mirrors or anything?
Yeah, F you. I was wondering who did that. But that's besides the point. Hey, so there's a pretty big game tomorrow. I'm sure you heard a thing or two about it. What are your thoughts going into this game?
I've heard stuff. My thoughts going into this game are initially who needs it most? Who needs it more, should I say? And honestly, I really think the Dallas Cowboys need this game more than the Philadelphia Eagles do. But at the same time, if we fall to 10-3, you guys will be 10-3 and we'll be tied, and then it comes down to a whole bunch of tiebreakers and stuff. So, I mean, my feeling going into this game is look, you guys are on a roll. Dak's playing an MVP level right now. I can't deny that, and I'm probably going to get crucified as an Eagles fan for saying that. But you know,
Not in
you
here.
gotta. No, yeah, shut up. But got to take it for what it's worth too. You know, you guys have been playing some scrub teams, and you guys have been putting up some late numbers. I mean, that Washington game, that was a 10-point game until the fourth quarter, and all of a sudden Dak went out of his mind in the fourth quarter. But I mean, going into this game, I mean, I'll admit, I mean, I'm a little nervous. We haven't swept the Dallas Cowboys since 2011, and we haven't won in AT&T Stadium since 2017. So, um, you guys are a 3.5-point favorite for a reason. But honestly, when it really comes down to it, I think that the Eagles and the Dallas are more evenly matched than people really want to give credit.
That's yep, yep.
I think that if you go down the list, Dak's playing great. Hertz is playing great. Our offensive line, our defensive line are both phenomenal. I mean, our secondary is struggling. Obviously, I'm hoping that with the addition of Shaq Leonard coming in, that it'll bolster the lack of or this whatever you so-called linebackers that we have. You know, and with the offense, CeeDee Lamb is a top 5 wide receiver in my opinion, and I mean, goddamn, your corners, your boy, what does he have? Like 11, 12 interceptions this year for
Yeah,
like five.
yeah, Bland, yeah.
I mean, and it Slay's taking a little bit of a step back. Bradbury's taking a little bit of a step back. We miss Avonte Maddox in the slot for sure. But I really feel like overall it's a very evenly matched competition, and that's why it went down to the wire last time. And I really think it's going to go down to the wire again this time. It's going to be very tough. I think it's a 3-point game. I think the line is right on because, for one, the Eagles, we got egg on our face right now, man. I mean, the Niners came in, they talked that shit, and they backed it up and they spanked us. So they got something to prove there. Dallas has something to prove. Everybody's been chirping about how, oh, they never beat anybody, with an over 500 record. Dak's only 9-24 against teams with 10 plus wins, but it's gonna come down to who wants it more, man. And I think it's gonna be a battle for the ages. I really do.
Yeah, going into this game, here's the thing, right? I think that when I look at both the Cowboys and the Eagles, I think that Dallas has that ability at home to explode. And I think that they're going to put up 40 points this game. I really do. And, the one thing that I was talking about in terms of defensively, I would love to see the Cowboys keep everything in front of them and make the Eagles run the football. Not because you guys don't have the personnel to kick ass when it comes to running the football. I don't think Brian Johnson is patient enough. I don't think he's a disciplined enough play caller to commit to the run and stay committed to the run. So because of that, I'm not building a game plan strictly based off what their personnel is. I'm basing this game plan based off the fact that I don't think their offensive coordinator is patient and disciplined enough to stay running the football. And because of that, I think that they're a team that tries to get the ball down the field. I think they're a team that waits for or doesn't wait for the big play. They try and go make the big play happen. And that's kind of why I think we've seen a spike in Jalen Hurts' turnover. But I'll give you 1 minute to respond to that.
So coming into this year, I mean, obviously everybody thought we were going to have the Super Bowl hangover. It's typical. People don't usually lose a Super Bowl and then get back to the Super Bowl ever, unless you're Tom Brady in 2018 when they lost to the Eagles and they went back and beat the Rams in the Super Bowl, which was probably the most boring Super Bowl that I've ever watched in my life. Remember, it was terrible. I think it was like 10 to 3. It was
13 to 3.
Brian Johnson, so bad. It was like a 1 touchdown, and it was like, oh, great. But honestly, coming into this year, I mean, it was a new offensive coordinator for Jalen Hurts. It's a new team. Obviously, he got paid in this offseason. But from the first game, I always noticed something different with Jalen Hurts. He seemed very hesitant. He seemed very. They're trying to mold him into more of a pocket passer than more of a mobile quarterback. On which, on one hand, I'm like, okay, I absolutely understand that because now he's a franchise quarterback. He's got paid. You don't want him to get hurt. He's never played a full season yet without getting hurt, whether it's missing 1 game or 3 games. So you want to protect him and you want to change him, his whole scheme, and protect him as your franchise quarterback. Great. But you're taking away what made him such a lethal weapon last year and the runner-up for MVP and should have been the MVP if not for getting hurt. And when I watched him early on in the season, he was dropping back, hesitating. He looked so hesitant and so slow. Like when the rush would come and somebody would come off the edge, or it would be like a linebacker blitz, he would just sit down and take the sack. Where in the last 2 years, he would take off. So I think they're trying to mold him into something he's not, and it's taking away from him. And I don't like it. But I mean, last year it would be 3rd and 14, the Eagles would drop back and Hurts would take off and get 15 yards. This year, it's 3rd and 14. He's dropping back. He's staying in the pocket. He's rolling. And then, like we did last week, he took a 15-yard sack. It's just like, I think that Brian Johnson's trying to make him into something he's not. And the strength of our team is the offensive line and running the ball. And these screen screen passes to the sidelines to Julio Jones, 5 yards. What are you doing? Honestly, Brian Johnson, Godspeed. I can't wait till you're the head coach of the Chicago Bears next year. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Brendan. Yo, I appreciate you, bro.
One more thing.
Hey, make sure to go check out the Quarterback Factory show if you guys are in here. He does good work with him and his buddies over there.
And just so you know, 31-28 Birds.
What happened to 37-28 like you predicted this morning? Oh, goodbye. All right. Next guest. My friend, I call him Kyle because that's his real name, but you guys call him Tony Goat Romo because you're not friends with him like I'm friends with him. Okay? Kyle, how are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, what's up, man? Yeah, and for sure, man, we're friends. We go way back. So I appreciate you having me on. And likewise, you guys know him as Cowboys Beat, but I know him as Chris because we're on that one-to-one basis. What's up, man? Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely, definitely. I appreciate you for coming on. So call me crazy for suggesting this. I think I'll go one by one with what I'm suggesting. I think that the best course of action this game would be on the offensive side of the ball. I think that the Cowboys should, one, completely forget about establishing a run game because that is favoring the Eagles' strength on their defense. I think that what the Cowboys should do in this game is throw the ball early and get Cooks and Ferguson involved early, establish them early, and let the Eagles know, hey, we got other guys other than CeeDee Lamb, because I think they're going to come out in this game and pay CeeDee Lamb a ton of attention. And because of that, you're going to be able to eat with Cooks and Ferguson. And then when they realize, all right, we have to pay attention to these guys, then you go after CD, and then you let them take over the game.
Oh, for sure. I think that's a great plan of attack. And the great thing about the Cowboys right now in their offense is everyone is playing at their best right now. It's just not CD going off right now. Like Cooks has had a really good couple of games. Ferguson is increasingly having better games. And you're absolutely right. And I think as soon as you said that, it's not too far stretch, and you're not crazy at all, because that's exactly what the teams did in the 1990s. We were talking about the Dallas Cowboys back in 92, 93, 95. They would come out, they would throw it, they would punch their opponents in the mouth. And then who would they run it with behind that great wall of Dallas? They would run Emmitt Smith down the team's throats, and they would close the game. And that's exactly what I envision should happen. Like you said, is go out there. I mean, start with your strongest suit, which is your passing game. And this Eagles secondary, we saw what Dak did in week 9. He can torch this Philadelphia secondary, and then get yourself a lead and then run it with Tony Pollard, because at that point, the Philadelphia Eagles would fold. I completely agree.
Yeah, we're on the same page with this. I'm not seeing a close game. I think the Cowboys are going to win big this game. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, right? Like, I'm talking about, they have the personnel to be able to be a kick-ass running team, right?
Right.
But I think that the best plan of attack, due to the fact that their offensive coordinator isn't necessarily playing to the team's strengths, he's looking to have Jalen Hurts make big plays down the field. I think the best course of action, keep everything in front of you and make them commit to the run, because I don't think this offensive coordinator wants anything to do with committing to running the football. I think he's an impatient coordinator, and I think he tries to make things happen when they're not there. Am I crazy to think keep everything in front of you and if they try and run the ball on you, let's see if they can continue doing that, because the 2 times they had tried to establish their running attack and commit to the run, it was Minnesota and it was Tampa Bay. They were having a lot of success in those games, but if they don't have early success running the football, they tend to deviate away from that.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right there. We're seeing with their coordinator, you're right. I think impatient is the right word to describe it. And that's not to say that he's bad or anything like that. It's just, as an offensive coordinator, as a play caller especially, you have to feel the game and go with your strengths and definitely just feel the tempo of the game and feel the nature of the game as it goes on. Back to the Cowboys, that's what Mike has been doing really well these past couple of weeks. At the beginning of the season, he was really struggling with that, in my opinion, but he's really come to his own, and that's why this offense is playing so well. But back to what you were saying with the Philadelphia Eagles, absolutely. I will say this, though. This has kind of been in the back of my head. I am slightly nervous about maybe this potentially, being high scoring, even though, it's in the back of my head. I'm not going to say this is actually going to happen, but I think the Philadelphia Eagles may be, they may like the idea of playing at AT&T Stadium, just because, they played back-to-back games in Philadelphia and Buffalo and against Buffalo and against San Francisco. And the weather's not really that good at Lincoln Financial Field. So they may be looking forward to the opportunity of playing inside the nice AT&T Stadium on turf and stuff like that. So, I mean, could we see let me ask you a question. Let me twist the tables on your show. Do you think their passing attack can come alive and this could become a shootout on Sunday night?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I do. Just like how, see, here's the thing, though. This is what I will say the difference between Seattle and Philadelphia is. I think that Geno Smith, just as a pure pocket passer, I think he's a better pure pocket passer than Jalen is. Throws with the anticipation. I think he's better at reading defenses. The reason why I say this could be a shootout is when you have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on the outside with Dallas Goedert, there's always potential that this thing can turn into a shootout because of those offensive weapons, and also due to the fact that Jalen Hurts gets a lot of protection from that offensive line. He's number 1 in the league in average time to throw. I think his average time to throw is like 3.35 seconds or something along those lines. So he has a lot of time to throw the football back there. And yeah, when all those things come into when all those things come together, like, yeah, absolutely, like that could turn into a track meet, so I definitely worry about that. Absolutely. And
they're getting Dallas Goedert back, to my understanding. They're getting him back.
Really good player. Yeah, absolutely. Really good player.
Yeah, so our defense is definitely going to have its hands full, because that's one of the things I'll definitely tip my hat to when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they definitely have a very explosive offense that can score at any point, and that's kind of what the Cowboys ran into in Week 9 after halftime. I mean, they had the lead 17-14, but the Eagles had back-to-back drives where they just went down the length of the football field and scored twice, and essentially got that lead and made it hard for the Cowboys to come back. So definitely. Even though our offense played really well in Week 9, You definitely got to. I'm worried about this defense. Where's your confidence level with this Cowboys defense after they let up 35 points against Geno Smith last week?
That's a good question. My confidence is probably, well, we would say 5 is middle of the pack.
Sure.
I would go, if you made me have like an exact number, I would go 4. But
Yeah.
I'm like, if I could have a 3.5, I'd probably go 3. Just because, look, Dan Quinn is so married to his principles. He's so married to his scheme. He plays a lot of that cover 1, and when you play that cover 1, there's a lot of opening for throws down the field. And Jalen Hurts wants to throw the football down the field. That's what he wants to do with AJ Brown and those guys. Like, look, what I will say is, I believe in this run defense. I do. I think that I don't think Oso Digizua gets enough credit for how damn well he plays the run. Hankins is doing a really good job. On the edges, I think you have 2 guys that set the edge very well with Lawrence and Parsons, and you got linebackers that are, they're good at fitting the run, but they're not, like, I don't necessarily look at them. Like, I don't look at a guy like Damone Clark as a hyper aggressive linebacker to the extent of like a Roquan Smith or somebody like that, or like a Drake Greenlaw. But he's fine. And Marquise Bell, that's somebody that I worry about this game. That is. So, overall, I would probably say a 3.5, just because, again, that Philly offense, it's high powered. And I think the only thing that can really stop them from putting up a big number is themselves. And throughout the course of this season, it's been happening. They're 10-2, but some would argue that 10-2 isn't necessarily
it's fraudulent.
Yeah, exactly. See, take the words out of my mouth, man. That's what some people would call it, though. They would call it a fraudulent 10-2 because of the fact that they probably should have lost a few of these games. But credit to them, they pulled it out, and they're in a position. They're in a position to I mean, if they win tomorrow night, they're going to win the division, and they're probably going to get the number 1 seed. But I mean, another thing that I want to do it as well, what I hope this team does. I'm not saying go out and break somebody's leg. Absolutely not. But go out there and beat them up. Go out there, just like how San Francisco does to teams. Go out there and beat this team up. Because then what follows you is them going to Seattle on a Monday night. Now, that's a tough flight from Philadelphia to Washington. Right. And, it's interesting because they flexed that game to Monday night. Maybe if that game was in the same time slot, that Sunday time slot, maybe they go from Dallas to Washington and spend the week there. I don't know if they would do that for a Monday night game. So, going forward, I would hope that the Cowboys, put a beating on this team due to the fact that, they're going to need them to drop a game, or I think they're going to need the Cowboys to drop, or the Eagles to drop 2 more games after Dallas if they want a real shot, because I don't think Dallas goes undefeated in that stretch with Miami, Buffalo, the Lions. I think they beat the Lions. I think they beat the Commanders. I think they beat the Eagles tomorrow. Tomorrow. I think they lose one of those games, either Buffalo or Miami.
Absolutely. And do you think maybe there's a conspiracy theory out there that with the officials helping the Eagles so far this year, maybe the NFL gave the Eagles one more day by flexing that game?
Yeah. Hey, look, you never know. You never know.
Because they want to keep Hurts nice and healthy.
That is true. One thing that I do want to add to this is I think that the crew to this officiating crew is John Hussey, I think his name is.
Yes, I believe. Yeah.
Brian Broaddus was saying on Twitter that he, his crew calls a lot of false starts and offsides. So that's something to pay attention to. I mean,
it'll be interesting.
Could work in their favor.
I think so. Look, with the stretch of games that we have coming up, the Cowboys should win this game. I mean, they should have won last game. They are clearly the better team on paper. They clearly have better chemistry than the Eagles because the Eagles have new coordinators on both sides. I mean, that's why I feel so confident in this game. I mean, the only way that this game is close, the only way that this game somehow hands the Eagles another win is if we get a repeat effort from what we saw last week with the penalties, or if we see this offense have its worst performance since San Francisco. And I just don't see those two things happening, or at least I hope it doesn't. But this is a game, man. I will be very frustrated and angry if the Cowboys lay an egg tomorrow night, because this is a golden opportunity for them to take that next step. And if they don't, granted, it will be on them. It will be their fault because they made mistakes. But this is honestly, after seeing the team the past few weeks, I feel pretty confident about tomorrow night.
Yeah, and this doesn't feel like one of those things where they squeak by a bad team and now you're like, oh, they won. Now they're going like they're beating the hell out of teams. And by this time this year, like last year, like the last two seasons, to be honest with you, there were like a game or two, or in the 2021 season, like 3 or 4, where you're just looking at the offense like, well, what exactly are you guys doing? Like,
Right.
What is going on here?
Right.
A few games that come to mind, like last season, you had that Houston Texans game where the offense just went stale, and then they went to Washington week 18, and that was abysmal. Year prior, Saints, the Giants game, the Broncos game, that Broncos game was a travesty. But they haven't had that this year, so I'm starting to think maybe this is just a consistently really good offense. And like I ran the numbers ever since that San Francisco game of just their offensive points per game, not even including like the pick sixes and the punt returns or whatever it may be, fumble sixes or whatever you want to say. They're averaging 33 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's the offense is playing really well, and one of the things is like, yeah, they're not playing great teams, and I understand that, but the Eagles have a great offense, but they don't like their defense. Like you can get their defense. Like I would really wonder where people would rank their defenses in terms of the teams that we played over the last 5 or 6 weeks or whatever, where their defense would rank.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question.
Yeah. So it's, look, to me, it's going to come down to what they do on the defensive side of the ball. I have confidence in their offense. I really do. But I don't feel great about this defense right now. And to me, it's penalties. That's the big thing. Because every single time they get in a big spot like this, it feels like penalties rear their ugly head. And, again, you go back to San Francisco, 3rd and 5, Jaron Kearse, what exactly are you doing? What are you doing lining up off sides? Look at the ball. Are your feet over the ball? Back up. It's not that hard, Even in Philadelphia, there were some really bad penalties. Like I think about the kick out of bounds and the Rashaan Evans face mask. I think about, a few offsides that they had where it's like, man, like you can't make those mistakes against an offense like this. And if you do, it's, you're going to pay for it. And like we saw in that game, those 2 penalties on the kickoffs, the Eagles went down and scored on both of them. And, I talked about capitalizing on opportunities. Like Sam Williams had a strip sack that he wasn't able to capitalize on. So, I went over it. Like there's some things that are in the Cowboys' control that they can take advantage of. Like they don't need the Eagles to do anything. Like if they just cut down on penalties, that's a self-inflicted thing. If you capitalize on opportunities given to you, again, that's a self-inflicted thing. I think you can have a lot of success.
Absolutely. I mean, the last game in week 9 against the Eagles, they had 10 penalties. I mean, if this team could have the under on that, right? If they could only commit 5 penalties, I like their chances. And of course, it's not just the amount of penalties, it's, the situation of the penalties as well. But yeah, like I said, man, I feel good. I haven't really been stressing about this game all week. Just been going about my days, and I'm like, I'm more worried about the Buffalo game. That's, for some reason, that's the one that's like keeping me up at night.
And that Miami game, I'm not loving either of those games, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think Miami is I haven't thought too much about it because it's 2 weeks from now, but I could see, I'm not going to go there. I'll just say the Buffalo game worries me. That's it.
Before I get you out of here, to bounce off that, are you worried about those games because they're on the road and they're much better? Like if we played those teams in AT&T Stadium, how much better do you feel about those games?
I would feel infinitely better about it. And this is something I talk about on my channel a lot of the times. For you to be a great team, you have to replicate the success that you've had at home and take it on the road. And in this McCarthy era, they just haven't done it. You look at last season, they were 4-4 on the road, and they were 1-1 in the playoffs. So, 5-5 in total last season. And this year, they're sitting at 3-3. And it's just, when are we going to make that jump to being a great road team? You got to get these big wins on the road. And if you look at the sample size that we've been given already this year, okay, you lost in Arizona. Well, no, let me go in order. So you won at New York. Okay, it's MetLife. It's not really the best home field advantage for the Giants because they share it with the Jets. Okay, Arizona, I'll take the L on that one. I was there for that one. You can blame that loss on me for being in attendance, but they should have won that one. And then San Francisco, obviously. So, yes, I'm worried because it's in Buffalo. And this team, historically in the past few years, I find them very finesse. And I think the stats are there to support it for how this team plays on turf versus grass.
I'd agree.
And in colder weather games. So Buffalo worries me. Miami worries me as well. Man, heck, throw Washington in there.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a fair point because last year you would say, oh, I'm not worried about Washington, and then went in there and they kicked our ass. And yeah, I mean, look, it's and that's the one thing that worries me about a potential playoff run. Like I was talking to my friend who's going to hop in here in a few seconds. I think that Dallas might have the best week 1 matchup of any playoff team if they were to get that 5 seed. But then going forward, it's difficult because you might have to go. I think you end up going to San Francisco. I do. I think San Francisco. I think the Cowboys win tomorrow, and I think San Francisco wins out, and you got to go to San Francisco unless something behind you happens, to where now you get some luck. But I think you're probably going to San Francisco week 2, and ultimately, if you struggle on the road in the regular season, it doesn't get easier in the playoffs, especially with the teams you play. And it just sucks. You got to hope that, or you got to win this game tomorrow, and you got to hope that Philly loses in Seattle, and you got to hope that they win out. But look, you're going to need, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you're going to need the Giants to want to screw the Eagles season up. And again, even if they want to, it's not necessarily win. So it's hard for me to see a scenario where, the Cowboys win the division. And, if you lose this game, maybe it's not the worst thing in the world because you'd rather play Philly and Philly than San Francisco and San Francisco. So that's what I'll leave you with.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for this I feel very comforted about this talk now.
I had to leave you with that. I'm sorry about that.
You're good. But man, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. Hey, if you guys don't know who this gentleman is, you should know who he is. He's Tony Goat Romo. He is on all social media platforms. Tony Goat Romo is the handle.
Yeah, that's right. Tony Goat Romo, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Follow me, X, all of those platforms. And go Cowboys. Let's get that win tomorrow.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on, my friend.
Thank you. You have a good day.
All right. That's it. Sweet. So we're powering through the guests. My next guest, he is a good friend of mine. We work together. His name is John. He's an Eagles fan. And what's going on, my man?
What's up there, brother? How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, man. I can't complain. I can't complain. I get to talk football and get moderately paid for it. Not even moderately, less than moderately paid for it. That's what's up.
Hey, man, you know, doing the best we can.
Doing the best we can. Absolutely, absolutely. So, all right. So, hear me out when I say this, right?
Oh boy.
I think that defensively for the Cowboys, I don't think it's a bad idea to keep everything in front of them and more so worry about defending against your passing attack rather than the rushing attack. And the reason why I say this is because I don't believe that Brian Johnson is patient enough and is disciplined enough as an offensive play caller to stay committed to the run. Do you think that I'm crazy for saying that?
No, not at all. I mean, let's be honest here. Johnson was a quarterback's coach. He's coming in. He's going to want to air out the ball. If you look at the Eagles games, they'll go pass first, and you know what? It just turns out that, you know, we've got a great offensive line, and Swift will gash the defense and have a nice run. And then Johnson's like, oh, yeah, we can run the ball. I forgot about that. And then they'll start calling more run plays. But realistically, yeah, I mean, it's as an Eagles fan, it's been tough. Obviously, you know, when we've made it to the Super Bowls the last 2 times, we had the number 1 rushing offense in the league. So just seeing us kind of, as a fan, it feels like we've been straying away from our identity. So that hasn't been the greatest to watch. But you know what? It is what it is. I think they want Jalen to develop as a quarterback, as a passer. And on top of that, you know, he had his little injury, so he hasn't been as mobile himself.
Yeah, and you know, because Greg Cassell, I don't know. Do you know who Greg Cassell is? He's like a big film guy. He was talking about Jalen, and honestly, like I more so chalk it up to, you know, new offensive coordinator. He was talking about how he's having a little trouble seeing the field, and you know, to me, that's less like, you know, because they ran a lot of RPOs last year. They were very successful doing so. I'm not seeing it so much from the Eagles. I think they, like you said, they want Jalen to develop more so as a passer, and I think he'll get there. I just don't know if it's right now that, you know, he's there yet. So, you know, that was very interesting to me to hear Greg Cassell say that, and honestly, going forward, you know, you got to take advantage of the fact that he's not all there yet when it comes to being like a true progression passer. And, you know, like he'll get there. I think he'll get there. It's just one of those things as a young quarterback that every young quarterback goes through that, you know, all right, now opposing defenses are adjusting to what you want to do. Now they know what you want to do. They have tons of tape on you. And I think come this offseason, Jalen will get in the film room and he'll figure these things out, and I think he'll be a much better player for it.
Absolutely. I mean, look, man, he's played very well to this point in his career. He's developed year after year. You and I have talked about this plenty of times, whether it's my team, your team, just in general. Offenses are so much more effective when they're balanced, and that's just basic football. Realistically, when you stray from that, you know, a defense can kind of dictate how they play you, and it's, you don't have to, even if you're not just running the ball all the time or passing the ball all the time. If you have tendencies, that makes it easier for defender play calling. I'd like to see a more balanced offense for sure. Like it'd be nice if we ran the ball more effectively. You know, I know we are on the higher side in terms of running plays called, but realistically, when you look at that, a good bit of those running plays that count for us are Jalen running the ball himself. Some are called, some are scrambles, you know. But man, with our offensive line, run the damn ball. You know,
exactly.
We've got people standing outside at the gates. Run the damn ball. I remember last year when we were literally, you know, what was it, a couple games into the season, and just chance coming down, run the ball. Like it's frustrating. It's fundamental stuff. It's football 101. And look, I understand we've got some fantastic receiving options. We've got AJ Brown, we've got a fantastic tight end, and a very nice complement on the other side of the field. So I get it. Throw the ball, and Hurts has developed a really nice deep ball. He's gotten pretty accurate.
Very
with
nice,
it.
absolutely.
So I'll give him credit with that, man. But like, you still got to mix it up. If you can keep the defense honest, keep them guessing, makes it easier for everybody.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. And just like Jalen's developing, I think Brian Johnson's developing with him, because I think this is his first time as a play caller. But again, if you're the Cowboys, take advantage of that. Like,
absolutely.
And my thing is, if I'm the Eagles, and hopefully, and Nick Sirianni's not listening to this, and Brian Johnson, I know they're not, so I can say this. If I'm them, I try and run the ball as much as possible, because Dallas's offense is white hot right now, and the Eagles' defense is struggling. So, what's one way to keep that defense off the field? Hold the ball.
Yeah, I mean, yep, absolutely. Time possession, all day, every day, man. And that was one thing that really got away from us in the San Fran game. And props to San Fran. They took advantage of our weaknesses. We had injuries, we had guys missing, and they exploited it. And that's what you should do as a good coach.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's so far away though from Shane, and I think pretty much everybody in the league is very far away from what Shanahan's doing over there in San Francisco. But it oh, had something in my throat there. Still recovering from this cold. Yeah, no, I think that I think you're absolutely right. It sucks with Dallas, because I would love for them to be a more balanced attack, but I don't necessarily think they're always going to be, for this season, an 80-20 team, an 80 pass, 20 run. And that's fine. They have the offensive personnel to do that.
Right.
Call me crazy when I say this as well. I think that a great plan of attack for the Cowboys going into this game would be target Cooks, target Ferguson early, because the Eagles are going to come into this game and they're going to pay a ton of attention to CeeDee Lamb, knowing what he did to them in Week 9. So because of that, now that you've established Cooks and Ferguson as legitimate options, I'm going at those guys, because they're going to get a lot of one-on-ones there. And I really like their matchups in those one-on-ones with a Ferguson and a Cooks. So I established them early. I let the Eagles know, hey, it's not just CeeDee Lamb and a bunch of guys over here. We have some legit players over here that you have to pay attention to as well. And then, once they start making that adjustment to where now they have to pay more attention to Cooks and Ferguson, then you go to CeeDee Lamb. And anytime, what's his name, Ricks is lined up across from CeeDee Lamb, it's one read, get the ball out every single time.
Yeah, basically. I mean, that's taking candy from a baby at that point. But yeah, I gotta agree with you, man. Like our secondary. Look, we have some players with some name recognition, Bradbury and Slay. We brought in a nice new safety. But let's be honest, man. I love my team. The secondary has been terrible this year. When you get lit up by Mac Jones, like, come on, man. You guys aren't. I know you had a good year last year, but like, it hasn't been fun to watch. But in terms of Ferguson, like, there's not a ton of tape on the guy. He's young, but he's very athletic. He's showing that he can be a phenomenal receiving option for you guys. And the middle of the field for us is an absolute liability. So yeah, I would say take advantage of it while you can. Philly's been struggling. We have a fantastic defensive line. Teams have trouble running the ball on us, but our secondary is, just terrible. There's no other. I can't sugarcoat it. We've been playing awful. We kept it close the beginning last week with San Fran, but they ran away with it, and they were just having a field day. You had guys open all over the field, and look, I mean, as much as I talk about Dak, and I'll give you a hard time about him. He's a solid quarterback. He's gonna hit guys that are open, and when you have guys streaking across the field wide open, Dak is absolutely going to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I think pretty much. I think Mac Jones would take advantage of guys streaking wide open across the field.
Yeah, yeah, and he did.
Yeah, it's,
it's rough.
When I think of like going up against the Eagles, like if you're going to run the football on them, it's got to be a lot of pin and pulls. It's got to be shifting and doing motion stuff to get those linebackers, get their eyes moving somewhere, and then the ball going somewhere else. I think you're gonna have a more difficult time doing that right now, just due to the fact that the Eagles signed Shaq Leonard. Look, is he what he once was? No, but he's an upgrade from Nicholas Morrell or whoever else you guys got rid of. So, at the very least with Shaq Leonard, you're not going to fool with this guy's eyes. He's not Christian Ellis. He's not Nicholas Moreau. He's not, who is the other guy? Not N'Kobe Dean, the other guy. Was there somebody else that you guys? Zach Cunningham's okay.
Yes,
there was somebody.
He's done Look, man, it's regardless. It doesn't matter. You put anybody in at our linebacking core that we've had, and they just haven't panned out this year, at least. Shaq is absolutely a step in the right direction, and like you said, he's on the back half of his career. It's a good signing. He's a solid player. I think he's going to be a good locker room guy. He's going to bring some experience to that linebacking room. But yeah, man, I mean, we've got lots of injuries. We've got lots of youth. And Dallas has a really good offense coming into this game. And on top of that, you guys have had a couple extra days to kind of game plan and rest for it.
True. Yep. Absolutely. I forgot to bring that up. Last thing I want to talk about before I let you go. You played linebacker in high school. So my question to you is this: do you think, like, when you look at the best defenses in the league, you think of off the bat Baltimore, San Francisco, New York Jets? Those are at least 3 of the 5 defenses you think of when you talk about, great defenses. Sure. Isn't it funny that one thing that they all have in common is both of them, or all 3 of them, have 2 really good off-ball linebackers? You talk about Baltimore with Smith and Queen. You talk about San Francisco with Warner and Greenlaw. You go to the Jets with Mosley and Williams. You look at these defenses, and a lot of the league isn't prioritizing off-ball linebacker, but the best defenses in the league, for some reason, all have great off-ball linebackers.
Man, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we finally put together a team last year with the Eagles where they actually went out and they got some decent linebackers. And you know what? We made it to the Super Bowl. I mean, God forbid, and it's crazy to me. This is just the body type that these guys have. Linebackers, defensive ends, they're some of the most athletic people on the field. And that's just the reality of it. They're guys that are big enough that they can come and tackle you and they can block up the run game. But they're also athletic enough that they can stick with, very mobile quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends. So I don't really understand why teams don't invest more in that. Because if you have guys that can kind of do everything you need them to on defense, look for the really good ones. Take advantage of them. Pay them. Yeah. I mean, look, I understand having defensive tackles and defensive ends that can get you lots of sacks, and that's great. That's phenomenal. But like you're saying, these really good defenses, they have more than just a defensive line. They're good players on every level. And at the linebacking core, they're just players that can play wherever you need them to, that are super athletic, quick, can hit hard. They're not afraid to tackle. And it just adds another layer of depth, and it opens up the defense for you in terms of what kind of play calling you can throw at an offense.
Yeah, because I mean, like when you look at even when you look at those teams, you look on at the third level with their safeties, and they got good safeties as well.
Yeah.
So you know, it's something that I always just find interesting because I don't think either of our teams are really invest in that position. The Cowboys picked Micah Parsons and they thought he was an off-ball linebacker at first, so I'll give them a pass for that. And they've been trying some guys out at that position, but it always cracks me up. And it seems like the two biggest fan bases that lobby for this guy the most are the Eagles and the Cowboys, and that's Jeremiah Trotter Jr. from Clemson. And I look at it and I'm like, Howie Roseman is not drafting an off-ball linebacker in the first round. If he does, I'll eat my hat. I will eat my hat if he does it. But it's just,
I can't see it happening. I would love it. I would, I would absolutely love it. If we would invest in a great linebacker or even a great young corner, dude, I would be blown away.
And it's funny, but before I let you go, so the guy who drafted Jeremiah Trotter Sr. Is big in the Cowboys media world. His name's Brian Broaddus. He's a former scout. He worked for the Eagles as well. He drafted Trey Thomas. And when Jeremiah Trotter, when he was coming out, they were like, yeah, he had some type of injury. And they were like, look, this guy can either play 11 games or 11 years. And Jeffrey Lurie looked at him in the face and he was like, if you like the guy, draft him. And they ended up drafting Jeremiah Trotter, and he was a great player for the Eagles. So it was just an interesting story, and his son's a really good player as well. Maybe a little undersized, but I think he'll be a pretty good player in the league. So
he's got some big shoes to fill.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks for hopping on, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, brother. Anytime. Always nice to talk football with you.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I'll talk to you, bro.
All right, bro. You have a good night, man.
Yep, you as well. I'll see it. Okay, we are an hour into the show. This has been a fun hour, man. Talking ball, Saturday night. Gotta love it, right? Gotta love it. So, okay, before we wrap this up, I do want to get into, some things that I think the Cowboys are going to have to pay attention to going into this game. Let's go over 3 players that I trust going into this game and 3 players that I don't trust going into this game. Now, I want to start off with a caveat. When I say 3 players I don't trust, I'm not saying they're not good players. I'm just saying in this particular game, I don't trust them due to the matchup. Okay. And hey, if anybody wants to hop into the stream and talk some ball, here is the link. I'm posting it right now in the stream. Posting it right now. You got one opportunity. Probably got more than one opportunity, but yeah, it's right there. Hey, so let's talk about 3 players I trust going into this game. They're all on the offensive side of the ball. Actually, a majority of this list is on the offensive side of the ball. 3 players I trust: Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's playing big-time football right now. There is a reason why he is a legitimate MVP candidate right now, because he's playing at such a high level. So, that's something to take into consideration when we talk about this game. Dak usually has success against this team. Dak's the best third down quarterback in football right now, going up against the worst third down defense in football. So that's something to take into consideration for this game. I think Dak's going to have a big game. He's on the top of my list of players I trust going into this game. Number 2, CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb had a big game versus the Eagles in Week 9. CeeDee Lamb's playing big-time football right now. He's going to be in the running for Offensive Player of the Year. I think Tyreek Hill is going to run away with it. But I'm just saying, if Tyreek Hill wasn't playing this year, you would be talking about CeeDee Lamb potentially winning Offensive Player of the Year. He'd be in that top 3, top 4 range. You know, he's entered that discussion as a top 5 receiver in this game right now. He's entered the discussion. Whether you want to put him there or not, that's up to you. You know, it's all about personal preference when it comes to that. But at the end of the day, CeeDee Lamb's going to have a big game. And like I said, I talked about, let's get Cooks, let's get Ferguson involved in this offense at first. And the reason why I do that is because I want them to not pay as much attention to CeeDee Lamb, because they have to pay attention to the other guys and then go right at CeeDee Lamb not every single time, but you know what I mean. Target him a lot in this game. And then the third guy, chat, hear me out. Tyron Smith, man. Tyron Smith, guys, I'm telling you right now, I'm gonna try and release a video on this. Tyron Smith is there's a really good case to be made that he could be an all-pro this year. I mean, this guy has let up 9 pressures in 9 games. Do the math. That's 9. That's 1 pressure a game that he's let up. 1 pressure a game. It's not hard math to do. I look, I wasn't great in school, but I'm just putting it out there. 9 pressures in 9 games. Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff from Tyron Smith. Hasn't allowed a quarterback hit, hasn't allowed a sack, 1 penalty on the year, and he played excellent football against the Eagles in week 9. So I trust him big time going in this game. You know, we're going to talk about, you know, what are they going to do with the future of Tyron Smith? Look, as long as that guy can give me half the season in the playoffs, keep that guy on this roster. He's that damn good. So the 3 players I trust going into this game: Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Tyron Smith. The 3 players I don't trust going into this game, right? Chad, I want you to guess. Who are the 3 players I don't trust going into this game? I want you guys to guess. I'm going to give no, not 3. Give me 1 player that you think I don't trust going into this game. Take a guess. I will give you guys 10 seconds to guess 1 person that I don't trust going into this game. Nope, not Jaron Curse. Even though that is something to talk about. It's not Jaron. He plays on offense. That's a dead giveaway, I think. Terrence Steele's right. I don't trust Terrence Steele in this game at all. He's playing better. I understand that. And I don't think he's going to have a disaster class like he did week 9. I just don't see that happening. It's not going to. It can't happen. You're paying Terrence Steele too much damn money for an Aster class to happen again. So I don't think it will. I don't. Another guy I don't trust going into this game is Tyler Biadasz. You know, Tyler Biadasz is a guy. What is it? Hold up. I'm trying to get one more person on this show. Tyler Biadasz is a guy that, you know, last game against the Eagles, he's a guy who struggled. And when you go up against those interior linemen of the Philadelphia Eagles, you're talking about Jordan Davis. He'll line right up over that center at nose tackle, and he'll push Tyler Biadasz back big time. You know, you talk about Fletcher Cox, you talk about Jalen Carter, if they decide to line those guys up at 1 technique or 0 technique over the center. That's going to be a lot to deal with for Tyler Biadasz. And Tyler Biadasz hasn't had a great season this year. He hasn't. And it's a shame because he's improved every single year he's been a pro. He's improved every single year, which is it's really a shame to see, you know, that he hasn't taken that next step, especially in a contract year where he's trying to get paid. And it's a shame, man. It really is. He was really on a good trajectory, Tyler Biadasz was. But ultimately what ended up happening was, you know, he kind of plateaued. As honestly, he didn't just plateau, he regressed. Now, maybe I've been hearing that he's playing through an injury, so respect to him if he's doing that, but I'm just saying I don't trust him going in this game. And you guys aren't going to like this one. You guys are not going to like this one. I'm telling you this right now. You're not going to like this one. I don't trust Marquise Bell in this game. Here's the reason why. Marquise Bell is an undersized linebacker. We all know this, right? He's an undersized linebacker. Philadelphia, if they actually decide to pull their head out of their behind and run the football and commit to running the football, that's a team they want to get to the second level and get hands on linebackers. And if they get to the second level and put hands on Marquise Bell, that's going to be a problem because Marquise Bell needs to be clean when he, Marquise Bell needs to be clean back there, or he's just not as successful. He's not one of those guys that's, a bigger, more imposing linebacker that can get his hands on offensive linemen and shed them out of the way and shoot a gap and, make plays that way. He's just not that guy. He needs help from his defensive line. He needs help from his Mike linebacker to go make plays. And that's something that I look at and I'm like, I don't know if I trust this guy going into this game. He is a fantastic player, chat. He's a fantastic player. I'm not saying he's not. Marquise Bell is tremendous. He's had a very good season this year. But ultimately, when I look at the matchup going forward into this game, it's not a great matchup for Marquise Bell. And again, I talked about with my friend John about the linebacker position. You got to address this position this offseason. And I understand they did, and I'll give them the credit. They did. DeMarvion Overshone looked like a guy who could potentially be a big-time player for this team. And I still think he can. We're going to have to see what happens coming off that ACL injury. But overall, I mean, look, it's a question mark. The linebacker position for this team is a big-time question mark. So, all right, we got Ivan. I think this is Ivan Sosa. And what's up, man?
What up?
What do you want to talk about?
About Michael Gallup, how he regressed this season.
How he's regressed this season, Michael Gallup?
Yep.
So here's the thing. Michael Gallup has been regressing for 2 seasons now. And I wouldn't even necessarily call it regret. I guess you can call it that because his level of play has dipped. Michael Gallup's coming off a bad injury. That is a bad injury. And sometimes players come off that injury and they're just not the same guy. And, that's kind of what's going on with Michael Gallup here. And it sucks to see. Michael Gallup was one of my favorite players on this football team. When you look back at that 2019 season where he was flat out tremendous. I think he had 1,100 yards. And even in the seasons following that, the 2020 season and then the 2021 season before he had that ACL injury, I loved the way Michael Gallup played the position. He was a very physical receiver, guy who can make contested catches, make plays at the catch point, a true X receiver. And that's what I loved about Michael Gallup. He's just not that guy anymore. And it really sucks. It really does because, he's still a young guy. He's not old. He's young. And what's that?
Jalen Tolbert.
Jalen Tolbert. Yeah, that's another guy to talk about. Jalen Tolbert, he's doing okay. He's doing okay. I don't think he's necessarily splashing to the extent that you want him to splash to,
big plays though.
He does make a few big plays. You're absolutely right. And definitely in those scramble drills, the connection that him and Dak have on those scramble drills, it's really special. It's just almost like they're on the same page pretty much. It's like they're thinking the same thing pretty much all the time on those scramble drills. You talk about the one in Philadelphia where he breaks off from Bradbury when Dak escaped the pocket, made a big play there. He made another play on a scramble drill for a touchdown that game. And then, you had the one the other day where Dak broke that tackle, evaded the sack, and got out of the pocket and made a play to Jalen Tolbert. So, yeah, look, I mean, I think Jalen Tolbert's, he's coming along. I'd like to see him improve with some of his route running.
It's better than last year's.
Definitely. He's better than he was last year. But, at the same time, when it comes to Jalen Tolbert, I think he can do a better job getting in and out of his breaks as a receiver or when he's running his routes. I think he needs to get a little better at that. He kind of struggles with that a little bit. And I mean, that to me is the big thing with Jalen Tolbert. He can run routes. He's a perfectly fine route runner, but he just needs to kind of fine tune his route running. He has good hands. He's not a guy that's going to blow you away with his athleticism. He's just not that. What's that?
He's like a Cole Beasley.
I
Huh?
I mean here's where I say that they're different. I thought Cole Beasley was a pretty damn good route runner. Very elusive, very shifty. I wouldn't necessarily put that on Jalen Tolbert. Like, I understand where you're coming from when you say that. It's not like a bad comp. And the reason why it's not a bad comp is because, like, Jalen Tolbert isn't a special athlete. Neither was Cole Beasley. But Cole Beasley wasn't a special athlete when it came to his size, his stature. Like he wasn't the fastest guy in the world, but he was very shifty, just knew how to play the position very well. So that's where, like, I understand where you're coming from when it comes to that. You got anything else?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for hopping on. Awesome. That was awesome. So I'm gonna wait about another 5 minutes. I got one of my friends. He has like a gambling page on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. That he's gonna give some picks away. So we'll see if he hops on. But yeah, like, last thoughts going into this game is, because I haven't given my official score prediction yet. It's tough because I do think Dallas wins this game. I do. I think the Eagles are a good football team. I do. I think they're a really good football team. I think that they're a team. Might sound crazy to say this, but what makes the Eagles better than the Cowboys? Like, what makes them better than them? Is it their personnel? Because, like, the Cowboys have, I'm not like in love with this Cowboys defense. Their defense is better than Philly's. Like, it just is. And I don't necessarily think it's even close. Like, I think the Cowboys have a much better defense than Philly. Is their offense better? I don't think so. I don't think it is. They have better offensive personnel, but with the way Dak's playing right now, along with the way CD's playing right now, with a good enough offensive line, with a good enough run game, right? Like, good enough. Not like beating my chest about how solid this run game is, because it's just not that. But, I feel good enough about this run game. Along with, the other pieces that they have on this team that I feel really good about. I feel really good about Cooks. I feel really good about Ferguson. So with those guys, going into this game, we'll just even comparing the two teams. I would say, I think there's a very legitimate case to say that the Cowboys are a better team than the Eagles, but it's kind of hard to win that argument because the Eagles have had a difficult schedule and they're 10-2 and they're the best team in the league. And, they were 2 games ahead of pretty much the entire league last week, and then they dropped the game to a really good football team. So it is what it is. So, my score prediction for this game, I might go a little bold with this one. I think that the Cowboys are going to be able to score at will. I think the Cowboys will capitalize on opportunities if the Eagles decide to turn the football over. Put the ball on the carpet, put the ball in harm's way in the passing attack. I am going to go a big score. I'm going to go Cowboys 41, Eagles 27 for this game. I think the Cowboys win this game by 2 scores. That's all due respect to the Eagles. I just think, the Cowboys are white hot right now, and I think they're catching the Eagles at a pretty good time here. So yeah, that's going to be it for the stream, guys. I waited a few minutes to see if one of my friends would hop on, but it is what it is. He's probably got something going on. That's fine. This was a fun one, guys. And hey, go Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? And let's get this thing done. Let's go win this football game. So I'll talk to you guys later.